My name is Amelia Parker. And this isn't just another story about family. It's about the moment I realized love can be a weapon and trust can turn into chains. I was forced to attend my golden sister's wedding, and when I refused, my dad threatened to cancel my tuition. I thought I'd lose everything if I didn't obey him. But what I didn't know was, the wedding would expose the kind of betrayal no daughter should ever witness. Sometimes, the people you love the most are the ones who write your pain. What would you do? Fight for revenge or choose peace? My name is Amelia Parker. I'm 22, a final-year psychology student living in Manchester, United Kingdom. To most people, my life probably looks simple: a small flat shared with my best friend Harper, late-night coffee, and endless study notes. But under the surface, everything in my life was about control. My dad controlled my education, my future, even my peace. He believed he was protecting me, but I knew it was about pride. His rules weren't made out of love. They were made out of fear that I might choose a life he didn't approve of. My older sister, Olivia Parker, was the family's golden child. She was beautiful, confident, and always perfect in my parents' eyes. Every achievement I made seemed to vanish next to her name. If Olivia scored 80, my 90 didn't matter. If she smiled, no one noticed my silence. Growing up, I learned one truth: the louder she shined, the smaller I became. That's why when the wedding invitation came, I didn't want to go. Not because of her marriage, but because it felt like another performance, another reminder that I'd never be enough. I tried to avoid it politely. I told my dad I had finals, a research presentation, even a group project due. But he didn't care. He simply said, "If you don't show up for your sister, I'll cancel your tuition support. You can figure out your future alone." Those words felt like a knife. My education wasn't just my dream, it was my escape. I'd worked for years to get into university, to build a life away from the constant comparison, away from being Olivia's little sister. But in one sentence, my father made it clear: freedom had a price, and he owned the receipt. That night, I sat by the window, staring at the lights of Manchester. Harper was making tea in the kitchen, her usual comforting chaos of clinking cups and burnt toast. She noticed the silence. "What's wrong, Amelia?" she asked, setting the mug beside me. "My dad," I sighed. "He's forcing me to go to Olivia's wedding. If I don't, he'll stop paying my tuition." Harper frowned, sitting beside me. "That's emotional blackmail. You can't let him control you like that." "I know," I whispered, "but I can't risk losing my degree. I've come too far." She placed her hand on mine. "Then go, but not as the sister they expect. Go as the woman they underestimated." Her words stayed in my mind for days. Maybe this time, I wouldn't hide behind Olivia's shadow. Maybe I'd finally face the truth behind the perfect family picture. The week of the wedding arrived like a storm I couldn't stop. My mum sent endless messages about dresses, makeup, and guest lists. Every text felt like an instruction, not an invitation. I barely slept, spending nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was strong enough to walk back into a house that never felt like home. When I finally arrived at my parents' place, the scent of lilies and fresh paint filled the hallway. Everything was decorated: gold ribbons, crystal vases, expensive champagne bottles stacked neatly on the counter. It was like walking into a magazine shoot. And there she was, Olivia, in her silk robe, glowing, surrounded by friends, laughing like she owned the world. When she saw me, her smile was polished but hollow. "Well, look who decided to show up," she said. "I didn't have a choice," I replied, forcing a smile. She tilted her head, that same pitying look she'd given me since childhood. "You should really try being happier for me, Amelia. It's not always about you." I bit my tongue, smiled politely, and walked away. That's what I'd always done: stay quiet, stay small. The rehearsal dinner was even worse. My father gave a toast, praising Olivia for her success, her beauty, her upcoming life with Daniel, her fiancé, a charming investment banker from London. I sat at the far end of the table, half listening, half drifting into my thoughts, until I looked up and noticed something strange: Daniel staring at me. Not just a casual glance, but a look that lingered, almost uncomfortable. I looked away, pretending not to notice, but something inside me twisted. Why did his eyes hold something familiar? After dinner, while everyone was dancing, I stepped outside for air. The night was cool, quiet, and the city lights sparkled in the distance. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. "Amelia," a voice called softly. I turned. It was Daniel. "You look beautiful tonight," he said. I froze. "You shouldn't say that. You're marrying my sister." He smiled, but it wasn't warm. "I'm just being honest. You've changed since I last saw you." My heart skipped. "Last saw me? What are you talking about?" He took a slow breath. "Manchester, 2 years ago, that conference. You gave a talk on emotional resilience. I was there." The memory hit me like a wave. I remembered that night. A psychology seminar. A stranger who asked me deep questions after my speech about pain and love. I remembered feeling an odd connection, a warmth, but I never saw him again, or so I thought. "You never told me you were Olivia's Daniel," I whispered. "I didn't realize it until your father mentioned your name," he said quietly. "Small world, isn't it?" For a moment, silence wrapped around us, heavy and sharp. I didn't know whether to feel betrayed or nostalgic. He looked at me like he wanted to say more, but then Olivia's voice echoed from inside. "Daniel, come on, love, the photographer's waiting." He smiled faintly, whispered, "See you tomorrow," and walked back inside. That night I lay awake in my old bedroom, the same pale walls, the same framed photo of us as kids. Only now I felt something new, unease. My father's threat, Olivia's perfection, and now Daniel's familiar eyes. It all tangled in my mind like a storm with no direction. The morning of the wedding, everything moved in slow motion. The makeup artists, the photographers, the endless instructions, it all blurred into background noise. My mother fussed over Olivia's hair while I stood quietly, watching her slip into her shimmering gold gown. She looked flawless, golden, like always. But behind that perfection, I saw something else, fear. It flickered in her eyes for just a second before she smiled again. And for the first time in years, I wondered, was Olivia's life as perfect as it looked? As the ceremony began, the music played softly, and the guests turned to watch her walk down the aisle. I sat near the front, my heart pounding. Daniel stood there, calm and confident, but when his eyes met mine for a brief moment, I saw it again, that flicker. Something unspoken, something dangerous. And right then, I realized this wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was a beginning, but not the one anyone expected. The morning after the wedding, everything felt strangely quiet. The noise, the music, the laughter, all gone. Only the faint smell of flowers lingered through the hallways of my parents' house. I sat by the kitchen window, staring at the garden where guests had once danced. Chairs were still scattered across the grass, a few wilted roses lying forgotten in the mud. My mother moved around the kitchen, humming softly as if pretending nothing had happened. But something inside me knew things weren't right. Olivia and Daniel had left early for their honeymoon, yet there was no excitement, no joy in my sister's eyes when she said goodbye. It was like she was carrying a secret, a quiet fear I couldn't name. I tried to shake it off. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe the awkwardness between me and Daniel last night was just my imagination. But the memory of his words, the way he said, "You've changed," kept echoing in my mind like a whisper I couldn't silence. That afternoon, I returned to Manchester. The city welcomed me with its familiar rain and noise. Harper greeted me with open arms, a blanket, and a mug of tea. "So," she asked, sitting cross-legged on the couch, "how was the grand royal wedding of Miss Perfect?" I gave a dry laugh. Golden, literally. Everything was gold, her dress, the decor, even the cake had gold flakes. It was exhausting. Harper tilted her head. "And Daniel?" I froze for a moment. "What about him?" "I don't know," she said, sipping her tea. "You mentioned before that he gave you a weird look. Did anything happen?" I hesitated, then sighed. "He talked to me, said he remembered meeting me 2 years ago at a psychology conference." Her eyes widened. "Wait, that's the guy who asked you about love and trust, right? The one you said felt different." I nodded slowly. "Oh, that's messy," Harper muttered. He's married to your sister now. Please tell me you didn't." "Of course not," I snapped. "I'd never, but it's strange, isn't it? Out of all people, Olivia ends up with him." Harper gave me a look, the kind that said be careful. "Strange, yes, but maybe it's just coincidence. Don't overthink it, Amelia. You've got your finals coming up." I nodded, but I couldn't promise her that. Days passed. Life tried to return to normal, but it didn't. Every night, my mind drifted back to that wedding. The way Daniel looked at me, the fear in Olivia's eyes, and something else, a text message I received the day after the ceremony from an unknown number. "You looked beautiful yesterday. D." My breath caught when I read it. Daniel. I stared at the screen for minutes before replying. "You shouldn't text me." No reply came, but it didn't end there. The next evening, another message. "I need to talk to you. It's important." I didn't respond. I deleted the message, turned off my phone, and tried to sleep. But sleep didn't come. Guilt and curiosity fought inside me like fire and ice. Why would he reach out to me? Was Olivia in trouble? Or was this something else, something worse? The following morning, as I walked to class, I saw him, standing near the cafe by the university gates. Daniel, dressed in his usual crisp suit, pretending to read the paper. My steps slowed. My heart raced. "What are you doing here?" I demanded quietly. He looked up, eyes calm but tired. "I needed to see you." "This isn't appropriate," I said sharply. "You're married to my sister." "I know," he said, his voice low. "But you don't understand, Amelia. I didn't want to marry her." I froze. "What?" "It's complicated," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Your father, he made sure this happened. Business connections, family pride, reputation. It wasn't about love." I stepped back, shaking my head. "You're lying." "I wish I was." His eyes softened. "I wanted to tell you before, but there was no time. That night at the wedding, I saw the look in your eyes. You saw it too, didn't you? Olivia isn't happy." I wanted to deny it, but the truth was I had seen it. The flicker of fear, the silence behind her smile. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked finally. "Because," he said quietly, "she's in trouble, and she won't listen to me." For a moment, the world blurred around me, the sound of cars, the chatter of students, all fading into a dull hum. "You're saying my sister is in trouble?" He nodded. "Her ex, Mason, he's been blackmailing her. He has something on her, something serious. She's terrified." The name hit me like ice. Mason Turner. I remembered him, Olivia's ex-boyfriend from university. Arrogant, wealthy, manipulative. I hadn't seen him in years. "Why would he do that?" I asked. "Money, control, I don't know, but Olivia told me he threatened to ruin her reputation before the wedding. I thought it was over. But yesterday, she called me crying, said he's back." I took a shaky breath. "So why tell me? What can I do?" "Because she won't trust me anymore," he said. "But she might trust you. You're her sister. You can talk to her, find out what's going on." Part of me wanted to walk away, to tell him this wasn't my problem. But another part, the part that still cared despite everything, couldn't ignore it. "Fine," I said finally. "I'll try." He looked relieved. "Thank you, and Amelia," he paused. "Be careful. Mason isn't the kind of man you want to cross." That night, I stared at Olivia's number for nearly an hour before pressing call. It rang twice before she answered. "Amelia," her voice was tired, shaky. "Hey," I said softly. "How are you?" "I'm fine," she replied quickly, too quickly. "Liv, is everything okay?" A long pause, then a sigh. "Why are you asking me that?" "Because Daniel told me about Mason." Silence, then a whisper. "He shouldn't have." "Olivia, talk to me, please. What's happening?" Her voice broke. "He has pictures, Amelia, from years ago. Stupid things I did when I was with him. He said he'll send them to the press, to Daniel's company, to Dad. He wants money, and he said if I tell anyone, he'll ruin me." My chest tightened. "Oh my God, Liv." "I can't let anyone find out," she whispered. "Especially Dad. You know how he is. He'll disown me." "Then let me help," I said firmly. "We'll figure something out." "No," she snapped. You'll only make it worse, just stay out of it. The call ended abruptly. I stared at my phone, heart pounding. The silence that followed was unbearable. I knew my sister. She was terrified, and when Olivia was scared, she made terrible choices. Over the next few days, I couldn't focus on anything. My lectures blurred, my notes stayed unread. Harper noticed immediately. "You're somewhere else lately," she said. "Is this about the wedding?" "It's about Olivia," I admitted. "She's in trouble, and I don't know what to do." "Then tell the police," she said. "It's not that simple," I whispered. "If this gets out, it'll destroy her." Harper sighed, rubbing her temples. "You can't fix everything, Amelia." "I know," I said, "but she's my sister." A few nights later, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Daniel. "Meet me at Cafe 21. It's urgent." I almost ignored it, but something told me not to. When I arrived, the cafe was nearly empty. Rain tapped against the windows as Daniel sat alone at a corner table, a coffee untouched in front of him. His face looked different, tired, anxious. "He contacted me again," he said as soon as I sat down. "Mason, he wants £50,000 by next week." I felt cold all over. That's insane. "I know. Olivia's losing it. She's convinced paying him is the only way out." "And you." "I'm not giving that man a single pound," he said sharply. "But she won't listen to me. Maybe she'll listen to you." I stared at him, torn between fear and confusion. "Why me?" "Because she still sees you as someone pure, someone untouched by all this mess. You're the only one who can make her stop before she does something stupid." I took a deep breath. "Okay, I'll talk to her again." "Thank you," he said softly. "You're the only one who can save her from herself." As I left the cafe, rain poured harder. My clothes clung to my skin, the city lights blurred through the water. But inside, something darker was brewing, suspicion. Why did Daniel care so much? Why tell me everything? The next day, I drove to Olivia's flat in London. When she opened the door, her face was pale, eyes swollen from crying. "Amelia, you shouldn't be here." "I had to see you," I said gently. "I know about the money, about Mason." Her shoulders slumped, and for the first time she looked defeated. "He won't stop," she whispered. "He said if I don't pay, he'll ruin me. Daniel thinks I should ignore it, but he doesn't understand." I placed a hand on her arm. "Then let's go to the police together. You're not alone." Her eyes met mine, full of fear. "You don't get it. Dad will never forgive me. He'll say I embarrassed the family. I can't lose him too." That broke me. Even now, after everything, she was still trying to please him, just like me. "Liv," I said softly, "Dad already chose pride over us a long time ago. Don't let him control you anymore." She didn't answer. She just hugged me tightly, trembling. And in that moment, I knew this was far from over. Because sometimes, silence isn't peace, it's warning. And deep down, I could feel it. The real storm hadn't even started yet. The storm finally came, not with thunder or rain, but with a message. 3 days after I visited Olivia, my phone buzzed late at night while I was studying in my tiny flat. I almost ignored it, thinking it was Harper reminding me to sleep, but the name on the screen froze me, Mason Turner. I hadn't spoken to him in years. My fingers trembled as I opened the message. "You always were smarter than your sister, Amelia. Maybe you should tell her to stop running from me, or the next message goes public." My breath caught in my throat. He knew I'd spoken to her. He was watching us. I felt sick, cold, angry all at once. Before I could think, I called Olivia. She didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. Then finally, a text came back. "Don't reply. Don't get involved, please." But it was too late. I was already involved. The next morning, I took the train to London again. I didn't tell Harper, didn't tell anyone. I just needed to see Olivia to understand what was happening. Her building looked the same, modern glass, clean hallways, but when she opened the door, I barely recognized her. Her hair was messy, eyes red, makeup smudged. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. "Amelia," she whispered, "why did you come?" "Because I got a message," I said firmly, "from Mason." Her face went white. You shouldn't have. I'm not going to stand by while he blackmails you. She turned away, packing the room. You don't get it. You think you can fix everything, but you can't. This isn't university drama, Amelia. This is real. Then let me help you handle it. She stopped, finally looking at me. You want to help? Fine, tell Dad. I blinked. What? Tell him what I did, what Mason has. Tell him his perfect daughter made a mistake. Her voice broke. Tears spilled down her face. I thought Mason loved me, she whispered. He said he'd protect me, that he'd keep my secrets. But when I ended things, he turned on me. He said he'd make sure no one would ever love me again. I moved closer, wrapping my arms around her. He's lying, Olivia. That's what men like him do. They feed on fear. She sobbed into my shoulder. He has photos, videos, messages. If he leaks them, I'll lose everything. Daniel will leave. Dad will disown me. The media will destroy me. I pulled back, looking into her trembling eyes. Then we stop him first. Her brows furrowed. How? I'll talk to him, I said without thinking. He messaged me. Maybe I can reason with him. Her eyes widened in horror. No, you don't know what he's capable of. But I was already determined. Then maybe it's time someone showed him he can't control us anymore. That evening I found him. His Instagram stories gave him away, a fancy rooftop bar near Soho. I didn't tell Olivia. I didn't tell anyone. I just went. The moment I saw him, it all came rushing back. The smirk, the charm, the false confidence. He was sitting at the bar, drink in hand, acting like the world belonged to him. Amelia Parker, he said, turning with that familiar grin. Didn't expect you'd be the one to come running. I'm not here to play games, I said coldly. Leave my sister alone. He laughed softly. You think you can tell me what to do? You're just like her, emotional, naive, desperate to prove yourself. I clenched my fists. Whatever you think you have, it won't last. People like you always fall. He leaned closer, voice low and venomous. You really think she told you everything? Sweetheart, your sister isn't the victim you think she is. She lied to you, to everyone. My heart pounded. What are you talking about? He smirked. Ask Daniel, he knows the truth, he always has. I stared at him, trying to read his face, but he just smiled wider. Walk away, Amelia, he said finally, before you end up regretting this conversation. I turned and left before he could see my fear. The city felt colder that night. I walked until my legs ached, until my mind spun with his words. Ask Daniel. He knows the truth. When I finally reached home, I found a message waiting on my phone. From Daniel. We need to talk, urgent. For a long time, I stared at the screen. Every instinct told me not to go, but curiosity, the dangerous kind, won again. The next day, I met him at a small park cafe near Piccadilly. He looked pale, uneasy. Amelia, he said, you shouldn't have talked to him. Then tell me the truth, I said. What is Mason talking about? What are you hiding? He sighed, rubbing his temples. It's not my secret to tell. That's not good enough, I snapped. If you care about Olivia, you'll tell me now. He looked around, making sure no one was listening. Then he leaned forward. Before we got married, he said slowly, I found out Olivia had been sending Mason company data, financial files. He blackmailed her into giving him confidential reports from her firm. She was scared, so she did it. But when she realized he was selling them, she panicked. That's when she broke up with him. He's been using it against her ever since. I felt my stomach twist. So she wasn't just his ex, she was his accomplice. He nodded, not willingly, but if this gets out, it's corporate theft. She could go to prison. I sat back, my whole body numb. Why didn't you tell the police? Because your father made me promise not to, he said quietly. He wanted to keep the family name clean, said he'd handle it privately, but he never did. Of course he didn't. My father only ever handled things that protected his pride, not his family. Where's Olivia now? I asked. She's been avoiding me, Daniel said. She thinks I'll leave her if the truth comes out. Would you? He didn't answer. That silence told me everything. When I left, the world felt heavy. I couldn't decide who to hate, Mason for blackmailing her, Daniel for lying, or my father for covering it all up. But most of all, I hated that I still cared. Back in Manchester, Harper noticed immediately. "You look like someone buried your soul," she said softly. I managed a faint smile. Maybe they have. "Talk to me." So I did. I told her everything: Mason, Olivia, Daniel, my father's silence. She listened quietly, then said something that stuck with me. "You've spent your whole life trying to earn love from people who only know control. Maybe it's time to stop saving them and start saving yourself." Her words hurt, but they were true. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, staring at the city lights when another message arrived. "Unknown number. You shouldn't have met him, Amelia. Now it's your turn to pay." A chill ran through me. I grabbed my phone, typed "Who is this?" But before I could send it, another message popped up. A video file. My heart pounded as I opened it. It was grainy, dark, but clear enough. It was me talking to Mason at the bar. But the angle made it look intimate, like we were close, like I was smiling at him. The caption underneath said, "Guess betrayal runs in the family." My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. He was setting me up. He wanted to make it look like I was part of this mess. Within minutes, I got another text, this time from Olivia. "What did you do? Mason just sent me that video. Are you out of your mind?" "Liv, it's not what it looks like." "I trusted you, Amelia. I told you to stay out of this." I tried calling her, but she didn't pick up. Again and again, until the line went dead. The next morning, the news broke. A leaked video showing an alleged affair between the new wife of Daniel Hayes and her sister. The photos were edited, distorted, twisted, but enough to spark chaos. Reporters camped outside Olivia's building. My father called, shouting, demanding I explain myself. I couldn't. I could barely breathe. Harper tried to keep me calm, but I felt like my whole world had collapsed. In trying to save Olivia, I destroyed us both. By evening, my phone buzzed again. This time, a voice message from Olivia. Her voice was broken, trembling. "You ruined me, Amelia. I don't care if it's your fault or not. Everyone believes it. Daniel's gone. Dad says I'm a disgrace. You wanted attention, you finally got it. Congratulations." The line went silent after that. I tried calling her again, but she didn't answer. Hours later, Daniel called. His voice was cold. "Where is she?" "What do you mean?" "She's missing." My blood ran cold. "What?" "She left a note," he said quietly. "Said she couldn't live like this anymore." I felt my world collapse. My hands went numb, my chest tightened. No, she wouldn't, she can't." "They found her car near the bridge," he whispered. The room started spinning. I dropped the phone. Harper ran to me, but I couldn't hear her. All I could hear was Olivia's voice, broken, angry, gone. The next morning, the police confirmed it. They found her body downstream. The world said it was suicide, but I knew better. Because an hour before she jumped, I got one final message from Mason. "I told you, Amelia, you should have stayed out of it." And that's when I realized the story wasn't over. It was just beginning. I spent days pretending everything was fine. My father thought the storm inside me had passed. My golden sister, Charlotte, continued to flood her social media with wedding posts, flashing smiles, expensive gowns, and a new life with my ex-boyfriend, Noah. I had stopped reacting. I had stopped crying. But what nobody realized was that silence can be the loudest scream, and mine was planning something. Every night after everyone had gone to bed, I'd sit on the floor by my small window, laptop open, a cup of tea growing cold beside me. The wedding was just 2 weeks away, and every detail was available online. I studied everything: the guest list, the venue, the theme, the schedule. I wasn't going to destroy her day with chaos. No, I wanted something deeper: truth. I wanted the world to see Charlotte for who she really was. The betrayal had eaten away at my soul for months, but revenge, it didn't come from hate. It came from the need for balance, from the urge to make things right without losing the last piece of myself that still believed in decency. I didn't want to become like her. I wanted to rise above her, but in a way that made her lies collapse on their own. I reached out to Ethan, a quiet but loyal friend from university. He was studying journalism and had a skill for uncovering hidden truths. When I told him part of my story, he didn't interrupt or pity me. He just said, "You don't have to shout to be heard, Amelia. Sometimes you just have to let the truth echo." His words stayed with me. I met Ethan a few days later at a small cafe near Deansgate. The evening light spilled through the glass, turning everything gold. Funny, I thought, how gold used to remind me of my sister, her golden hair, her golden smile, her golden life. Now it just felt like a shade of hypocrisy. Ethan opened his laptop. "You said you have screenshots, messages, something to prove she cheated with your ex before you broke up." I nodded, pulling a USB drive from my bag. "It's all here, but I don't want to humiliate her publicly. I just want the truth to come out naturally, like a mirror showing what's behind the glitter." He smiled faintly. "That's poetic, painful but poetic." We spent hours piecing together a quiet plan. Ethan suggested writing an anonymous article titled "The Golden Lie," not naming anyone but describing a perfect sister stealing what was never hers. The story would go live a day before the wedding, with enough clues for people in our town to recognize the truth, without a single name mentioned. It wouldn't be cruel. It would be honest. But there was another part of the plan that only I could do. I decided to attend the wedding, not as the broken sister my dad forced to be there, but as someone who finally understood her worth. I would wear a simple dress, something elegant but not loud. I would look her in the eyes, congratulate her, and let my silence say everything my tears once tried to explain. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. My father knocked on my door. "Amelia, I'm proud of you for finally agreeing to go," he said softly. "Family comes first, no matter what happens." His words twisted like a knife. No matter what happens. Did betrayal count? Did pain count? I looked at him and said, "You're right, Dad. Family does come first. And tomorrow, maybe you'll finally see what that really means." He didn't understand, just smiled and wished me good night. As the morning came, Manchester was wrapped in gray clouds, the kind that hinted at rain but never fully gave in. It felt fitting. The wedding venue was a countryside estate, lush and expensive. The air smelled of flowers and money. Every corner screamed perfection, but underneath, I could almost hear the cracks forming. When I walked in, heads turned. I hadn't seen Charlotte in months. She looked radiant, of course, every inch the golden bride she wanted to be. She smiled when she saw me, but I saw it, the flicker of guilt in her eyes. A flash of memory hit me. The day I found those texts, her name lighting up Noah's phone. It had all started with a smile like that. "Amelia, you came," she said, hugging me as cameras clicked around us. "I'm so glad you're here." I forced a gentle smile. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Her grip tightened for a moment, and then she stepped back, still smiling for the guests. I took a slow breath, my heart steady. The article had gone live that morning. Ethan had sent me a message before I left home. "It's published. It's already spreading." The ceremony began beautifully. The vows, the music, the applause, it was all flawless. But I could feel the shift. Guests started whispering. Someone's phone screen lit up. A bridesmaid whispered into another's ear. The ripple had started. Charlotte noticed it too. Her perfect smile began to falter just slightly. She tried to focus on Noah, who looked equally uncomfortable. The truth was crawling its way into the room, slow but unstoppable. I stood at the back, watching. I wasn't gloating. I wasn't smiling. I just felt peaceful. The kind of peace that comes when you've let go of the need to shout and let justice speak for itself. After the ceremony, as the guests moved toward the reception, my father approached me. His face was red with confusion and anger. "What's happening, Amelia? People are talking about Charlotte, about Noah. Did you do something?" I looked at him calmly. "I didn't do anything, Dad. I just stopped pretending." Charlotte came storming toward me, her golden hair falling out of its perfect curls. "You think this will make you look better? You've ruined my day." I held her gaze. "No, Charlotte, I didn't ruin it. You did when you chose to betray me." For a moment, everything went silent. The chatter, the music, even the wind, It all faded. There were just two sisters, standing face to face in the middle of a truth too big to hide anymore. She tried to speak, but her lips trembled. Then she turned away, disappearing into the crowd. My father stood frozen, torn between his two daughters, between illusion and truth. I didn't wait for him to decide. I walked out of the venue, the cold air hitting my face like freedom. Outside, Ethan was waiting in his car. "It's done," he asked softly. I nodded. "It's done, but it doesn't feel like revenge, it feels like release." He smiled, starting the engine. "That's because you didn't fight to destroy someone, you fought to find yourself again." As we drove away, the rain finally began to fall, soft, cleansing, and endless. And for the first time in months, I let it wash over me, washing away the lies, the pain, and the version of me who thought silence was weakness. Sometimes truth doesn't need to be shouted. It just needs to be seen. And mine was finally visible, clear as rain over the golden lies that used to define my family. The silence after the storm was deafening. 2 days had passed since Charlotte's wedding, 2 days of unread messages, unanswered calls, and restless nights. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, yet I couldn't bring myself to look at it. I'd done what I had to do. The truth was out there, and somehow I thought that would bring peace. But peace, I was learning, doesn't come easily, not when the people you love can't handle the truth. I stood by the window of my small apartment, watching Manchester's endless drizzle trace its way down the glass. The city felt different now, colder maybe, or maybe it was me who'd changed. The reflection staring back wasn't the quiet, obedient Amelia anymore. She looked steady, detached, but her eyes still carried the weight of everything she'd lost. My dad hadn't spoken to me since the wedding. When I left that day, his face was pale with anger, but behind it, I saw something worse, disappointment. Not because of what Charlotte did, but because I had dared to shatter his illusion of a perfect family. I wasn't sure which hurt more, his silence or his blindness. The knock on my door that morning was soft but urgent. When I opened it, Ethan stood there, rain on his jacket, his hair damp, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You look like you haven't slept in days," he said. "I haven't," I replied, taking the coffee and managing a faint smile. "Any updates?" He nodded. "The article blew up. It's everywhere now. People are connecting the dots. Charlotte and Noah haven't been seen since the wedding. Your dad tried to deny everything, but there's too much evidence." I sank into my couch, exhaling. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I didn't want to ruin their lives, Ethan. I just wanted them to stop pretending. He sat beside me. "You didn't ruin anything, Amelia. You exposed what was already broken. They did this to themselves." His voice was calm, but I could feel the concern behind it. Ethan had become my anchor through all this chaos. He didn't push me to smile, didn't feed me false comfort. He just existed beside me, quietly steady, like a safe corner in a collapsing world. That afternoon, a message came through from an unknown number. I almost ignored it until I saw the words, "We need to talk." Dad. For a long moment, I just stared at it. Then I typed back, "Where?" "The house, tonight." The thought of going back there made my chest tighten. That house held every version of me, obedient daughter, forgotten sister, invisible shadow. But maybe it was time to face it all one last time. By evening, the rain had stopped. The air smelled of wet earth and fatting storms. I arrived at the house just after sunset. The lights were dim, the living room quiet. My father sat in his armchair, a glass of whiskey in his hand. His face looked older, lines deeper, eyes duller. He didn't look up when he spoke. "You've humiliated this family, Amelia." I took a slow breath. "No, Dad. Charlotte's actions did that. I just refused to cover them up." His jaw clenched. "You think the world needed to know. You think airing our private pain makes you righteous." I met his eyes. "No, but pretending everything's perfect while your daughter destroys another's life, that's not love. That's denial." He stood, slamming the glass onto the table. "Your mother raised you better than this." I flinched at her name. My mother, the quiet peacekeeper who had passed away years ago. She had been the thread that held us all together. Without her, we had all unraveled. "I think she'd be proud of me," I said softly. Because I didn't let them break me. His expression cracked for a moment, something fragile flickering behind the anger. You've always been too much like her, he whispered. Too honest, too stubborn. That's why Charlotte was easier to love. The words hit like a slow knife. Easier to love. He didn't mean to say it, but he did. And now it was out there, echoing between us. Then maybe that's the real truth, isn't it? I said, my voice trembling. It was never about what's right. It was always about what's convenient. Charlotte gave you the illusion of perfection. I gave you reality, and you couldn't handle it. He turned away, silent. The clock ticked between us, marking the slow death of a relationship that once meant everything. When I finally left the house, I didn't cry. Not this time. There was no anger left, only acceptance. Sometimes, family doesn't break in one dramatic moment. It just quietly fractures over time until you realize the pieces no longer fit. The next day, I received another message, this time from Charlotte. Meet me, just once, please. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but something in those two words, please and once, made me pause. I agreed to meet her at a small park we used to visit as kids near the old willow tree. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting on the bench, her golden hair duller, her eyes swollen. She looked smaller somehow, like life had finally stopped bending in her favor. Amelia, she said quietly, I don't even know where to start. Try the truth, I replied. She looked down. I didn't mean for it to happen with Noah. It started before I even realized what I was doing. He said things I wanted to hear, things I'd been craving from everyone else. I thought he loved me. And when you two broke up, I convinced myself it wasn't wrong anymore. But it was. It always was. Her words hung in the air, trembling with guilt. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the wind moving through the willow leaves. I didn't want revenge, I finally said. I wanted honesty. You could have told me. You could have faced me like a sister instead of hiding behind lies. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I was scared. You've always been stronger than me. I thought if you knew, you'd never forgive me. I probably wouldn't have, I admitted, but at least I would have respected your honesty. She reached for my hand. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know Noah left. He couldn't handle the pressure. I guess that's what happens when lies meet daylight. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. She had made her choices, and I had made mine. For the first time, we were standing on equal ground, two sisters stripped of illusion, facing the cost of their own truths. When she finally stood to leave, she turned back to me. You know what's funny, she said softly. They used to call me the golden one, but gold fades. You're the one who survived the fire. Her words lingered, even after she disappeared down the path. As I walked home that night, I realized something profound. Revenge wasn't about destruction. It was about clarity. It wasn't about watching others fall. It was about finally seeing yourself rise. The next morning, my father called. His voice was quiet, fragile. Amelia, I'm sorry, he said simply. I should have listened. I just wanted to believe that family could stay perfect if we ignored the cracks. But you were right. You always were. I didn't know what to say. For months, I had dreamed of hearing those words. Now that I had, they didn't feel triumphant, just bittersweet. Thank you, Dad, I whispered. But it's not about being right, it's about being real. For the first time in a long time, I felt light. Not happy, just free. Later that evening, I sat by my window again, tea in hand, watching the rain return to Manchester. The city lights blurred softly through the drops, like memories fading into something gentler. I opened my laptop, typed a few words into a blank document. Sometimes, the people you love the most are the ones who teach you what love should never feel like. And then I closed it. The story didn't need to be written anymore. It had already been lived. For once, silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Days turned into weeks, and for the first time in what felt like forever, my life began to quiet down. The noise, the whispers, the blame, the shame slowly faded. Manchester's streets no longer felt like a reflection of my chaos. They felt like home again. I started walking to university instead of taking the bus, just to feel the wind, the ordinary rhythm of life passing by. The world had moved on from my family's drama, but inside me, something had shifted forever. I was no longer that invisible girl hiding behind other people's perfection. I had walked through the fire and come out whole. One morning, as I sat in the library, lost in a textbook I wasn't really reading, Ethan appeared again. His quiet smile still carried the same calm I'd come to rely on. "Hey," he said, pulling out a chair. "You look different." I smiled faintly. Different good or different scary? He chuckled. Different strong, like someone who finally stopped carrying everyone else's guilt. I laughed softly, looking down. Maybe I did, I just don't know what to do with all the space it left behind. He leaned forward. "You fill it with yourself this time." It sounded simple, but it hit deeply. For years, I'd built my life around keeping the peace, making others happy, being the dependable daughter, the understanding sister. But now, with that gone, I had to figure out who Amelia Parker really was, without the shadows. Over the next few weeks, I focused on things I had forgotten I loved. I painted again, messy, colorful, emotional art that didn't have to be perfect. I volunteered at the student radio station, telling small stories about people's real lives, stories without glamour, but full of truth. Somehow, it helped me heal to speak for those who had also been silenced. And then, one afternoon, as I walked home through the drizzle, my phone rang. The name on the screen made me stop, Dad. I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Amelia," his voice said, tired but gentle. "I've been thinking a lot lately, about your mother, about everything." I stayed silent, letting him continue. "She believed that truth, no matter how painful, is what keeps love real. I didn't understand that before. I thought keeping peace meant hiding pain. But you were right. You taught me that." I felt my throat tighten. For months, I'd been waiting for anger or defense from him, but instead, there was only quiet humility. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said. "But if you ever want to come home, the door's open. And not because I want to control you, but because I finally see you." Tears slipped down my face before I even realized it. "I'll think about it," I whispered. That night, I sat by my window again, looking at the soft lights of the city. For the first time, those lights didn't feel like a reminder of loneliness. They felt like little pieces of hope scattered across the dark. The next weekend, I took a small trip to the countryside. Alone. No noise, no drama, just silence and open skies. I rented a little cabin near a lake, where the water reflected everything so clearly it felt like standing inside a mirror. There, I wrote. Not for an audience, not for revenge, just for myself. I wrote about Charlotte, about Dad, about Noah, about loss and forgiveness and the strange beauty of surviving what was meant to break you. And somewhere between those pages, I realized forgiveness wasn't about letting them off the hook. It was about setting myself free. On the third evening, as the sun sank into the hills, I opened my phone. There was a new message, this time from Charlotte. "I'm moving away. Starting over. I hope you're doing better. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve peace." I stared at her words for a long moment before typing back. "You don't have to earn peace, Charlotte. Just stop hurting people, including yourself." It wasn't a reconciliation, but it was something close to release. The past no longer needed to define us, it just needed to be acknowledged. When I returned to Manchester, something felt lighter. My father called every few days now, never to control, only to ask, "Are you okay?" Ethan and I grew closer, not because I needed saving, but because he saw me as I was, not as I was expected to be. One evening, we walked by the river. The air smelled of rain, the lights shimmered across the water. Ethan looked at me, his eyes soft. "You know, I read that article again, the one you and I worked on." I smiled. The golden lie. He nodded. "Funny thing is, people thought it was about betrayal, but to me, it was about rebirth." I looked at him for a long moment. Maybe it was both. We stood in silence for a while, and then he said something that stayed with me. "You didn't just expose a lie, Amelia. You turned it into light." That night, I went home and sat at my desk. I opened my journal and wrote the final line to my story. Sometimes, walking away isn't weakness, It's wisdom. Because peace isn't found in proving someone wrong, it's found in no longer needing to. Months later, I graduated. My father attended the ceremony, standing quietly in the back. When I saw him afterward, he didn't lecture or defend anyone. He just hugged me, and for the first time, it felt real, no expectations, no masks. Just love, raw and flawed, but finally honest. As I walked across the stage that day, I realized that my story wasn't one of revenge, it was one of reclamation. I had lost everything I thought defined me: family, love, belonging. But in that loss, I found something greater: myself. Years from now, people might still remember Charlotte's golden wedding or the scandal that followed. But I'll remember the quiet moment afterward, the rain, the freedom, the truth finally breathing in the open. Because sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't watching someone fall. It's watching yourself rise so high that their betrayal can't even reach you anymore. And that's what I did. I rose quietly, gracefully, completely. So, if you've ever been forced to smile through pain, to pretend everything's fine while your world burns inside you, remember this: truth might cost you everything, but it will also give you back your soul. And maybe that's the only kind of victory that ever really matters. Sometimes, walking away is louder than revenge itself. What would you do? Choose revenge or choose peace? Tell me in the comments below.